Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this latest edition of Warner, Norcross and Judd's The Right Side of the Law. My name is Madelaine Lane, and I'm a partner in the litigation practice group here at Warner, and I specialize in criminal defense. Today, I'm joined by my friend and go-to public relations expert, Mary Ann Sabo.
Thanks, Madelaine. I'm Mary Ann Sabo, and I'm the founder of Sabo PR. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and Warner is my go-to law firm.
Now, Mary Ann, you and I have the pleasure of working with each other quite a bit, especially on situations that I think we both refer to as sort of crisis communication matters. And that can run the gamut of circumstances, but typically where you and I work together are situations where perhaps law enforcement is on scene because they're arresting an employee, they're executing a search warrant on the business, or for some other reason that third party is there and it's making the waves around the media, and you've got a media there with a microphone in the CEO's face, or maybe even the receptionist's face, asking for a comment. So in those types of situations, when a client calls you, what's your advice?
Well, before you say the first thing, my first question is, have you called your attorney? And if not, please stop and call your attorney. And Madelaine, why is that important?
Well, first of all, great advice, I love it. And I think it's important because in almost all of these circumstances, there is the potential for legal liability for individuals involved or for the company. And so, for example, in a search warrant situation, so law enforcement's there, they are executing a search warrant and rifling through your electronic and paper files. There are a number of steps that you can take as a company to make sure that that process goes smoothly and that you protect your confidential and privileged documents and other communications. So what I will tell people is, first of all, make sure your decision makers and the right individuals are on the scene. Most of the time that involves your attorney. Make sure you get a copy of the search warrant. You read in the search warrant what it is law enforcement is allowed to review, allowed to take with them, what locations they are. And while you don't want to get in law enforcement's way, you want to have someone there following them, just sort of noticing what they're doing, pointing out potentially attorney-client privileged materials they might be seizing. And then you also want to have somebody on scene that lets their employees know you are not required to speak with anyone. I'm not going to keep you from doing that, but you're also not required to speak with anyone. And in most cases, send non-essential employees home so that there are fewer people around to either talk with law enforcement or, more importantly, speak with the media. And of course, if our client calls me directly, my advice after talking about controlling the scene is to call Mary Ann Sabo.
Well, and I think that's also very important advice too, because you want to make sure that you have everything taken care of that you can manage at that scene. And then what you want to do is make sure, take a breath, because when your hair's on fire, you can't really think about anything else but my hair's on fire. So that's where the two of us can come in and really help you dig in and figure out what those next steps are. We always like to say that you want to start with that core crisis team. So you want to make sure you do have those decision makers, as you just said, around the table. And so that's going to be the CEO, the CFO, information technology, etc. But you also want to look to see if you have outsiders who are going to be available too. So that might be your criminal counsel, or that might be another specialized legal counsel. You might want to have your accountant, your banker, your insurance agent, and certainly somebody in communications, because those are going to be the people who will help you take a look at the situation and figure out how to respond.
Do you recommend in these situations that people think ahead and have a crisis communications plan in place before the 911 situation occurs?
You know, Madelaine, it's always a great idea to have that. And if you think about it, it's like a guardrail at the top of the cliff. But sometimes people don't do that. And so they call us, and we are that ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And so we are oftentimes stitching together a crisis plan on the fly for people. And that's okay too. You just want to make sure you've got somebody who's experienced, who's done that before, who's not learning or doing something on the first time for your nickel. Because while all crisis situations are different, there are certainly rhythms and things that all of them have in common. So you can put together something that's on the fly that will take you through to make sure that you're taken care of.
Now, in most of the cases you and I are involved with, one of the first questions that we get is, what can I say? And we have clients that want to, understandably so, push back with a statement, sometimes a detailed statement, to media to counteract whatever it is the messaging initially is out there. What is your, I can talk about long-term strategy, but in terms of short-term strategy, what do you recommend?
Shorter is always better. You don't ever want to say no comment, but there are lots of ways to say no comment with more words. So you want to make sure that you don't come out swinging, because at the beginning of a crisis, you don't know what you don't even know at this point. And you don't want to have to walk back situations, which we've seen too often when somebody comes out and really hammers something in, and then all of a sudden they have to backpedal. You know, the thing that we say with communications is we can message to just about any situation, but we always want to make sure in a situation where it is a crisis that we follow the lead for the attorneys, because you guys are going to tell us what is that long-term strategy. So Madelaine, how do you decide on that?
And I think what you said, Mary Ann, is key, is that at the beginning of a crisis, you don't have all the facts. You might believe that you have all the facts, but you also have to be thinking 3-4 steps down the road. So if this is a situation where we think litigation may be potential in the future, or there's the potential for criminal charges, we need to think through what the long-term advantages and disadvantages are to coming out and making a statement early. And so you need to have not just the knowledge of how something is going to be impactful and that message is going to be read by the general public from a communication standpoint, but you really need to have the subject matter experts in terms of legal advice to talk you through what those potential consequences are, not just today, not just tomorrow, but a year, 2 years down the line for whatever it is that you're hoping to say. Thank you again for joining us for this edition of The Right Side of the Law. It was my pleasure to be here today, not just to speak with you about crisis communications, but to also have the opportunity to catch up and speak with my good friend Mary Ann Sabo. If you have any questions about the topics we discussed today or about crisis communications in general, please feel free to reach out to myself, to Mary Ann and her team at Sabo PR, or your Warner attorney. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in the next edition of The Right Side of the Law.
Thanks, Madelaine.
Thank you.